State Government Finance and Elections Committee meeting to order for March 4th, 2021. And pursuant to House Rule 10.01, this meeting is being held virtually. And so if somebody can mute themselves, because I'm getting feedback over somebody's. The first order of business today is for the legislative assistant to call the roll.
Chair Nelson,
I'm here.
Vice Chair Carlson. I can see him, but he's not unmuting. Representative Nash,
Present.
Representative Bonner, Representative Drazkowski, Representative Elkins,
Present.
Representative Greenman,
Present.
Representative Cleaborn,
Present.
Representative Kosnick,
Present.
Representative Mason, Representative New Brindley,
Present.
Representative Pileski is excused, Representative Quam,
Present.
and Representative Drazkowski, I think you just joined.
Drazkowski's here.
Great. And then Representative Sandra Mason also just joined.
Carlson,
A quorum is
present.
Thank you, members. The second order of business is the approval of the minutes. Representative Carlson, did you get a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting?
As a matter of fact, Mr. Chair, that's what I was doing before I could unmute myself. So yes, I would like to move the minutes.
Representative Carlson moves approval of the minutes from our meeting on March 2nd. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Our minutes are approved. The first bill on our agenda this morning is House File 897, Representative Huot, Gambling Control Board membership modified. And I'll move the House File 897, and depending on what happens with the amendment, we'll decide where it has to go. If the amendment goes on, I've been requested to send it back to Commerce. The chair is asked to see it again. So with that, members, Representative Huot, if you want to explain your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee members. House File 897 is a basic, simple bill, believe it or not, that allows the Gambling Control Board to continue with their current board members in the absence of an appointment or and somebody that doesn't. We see this in our boards, and I've seen it more and more as I look at boards, that it takes a while for the appointments to come out of the administration. And many of these boards are small, like this one, and they cannot actually function because their current members have to step off the board until either reappointed or the two ones come in, and there's always work to be done on these boards. So simply, that's what this bill will do. I do have somebody here for technical questions if there is anyone that has them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And well, I see there's Representative Nash has an amendment, and why don't we deal with that first, and then we can get the testimony from the testifiers. Representative Nash.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to move the A2 amendment to House File 897.
Representative Nash, move the A2 amendment. Why don't you describe what your amendment does?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The A2 amendment would allow for many of the civic and charitable organizations such as Fire Relief, Lions, VFWs, Legions, Rotarians, churches, synagogues, groups like Pheasants Forever, Ducks Unlimited, and others like that to do the raffles that they have been doing previously. And usually those are sold in person, but be able to do that via telephone. They would still be subject to the same laws and rules and payout requirements that they currently abide by. But just in this time of COVID, and we don't know how long that's going to go, many of these good groups use these raffles as a primary means for fundraising. And I'm sure we've all, I've never met anybody that's never bought a raffle ticket from a good group like that. And what this will allow them to do is to continue to do that, continue to do the work that they do as a result of their fundraiser. And I just think this is a great amendment to the bill. I appreciate Representative Huot's allowing this to go on, I believe. And this is being done in the state of California, who recognize that there is a need to allow groups like this to do this in this time of COVID. So with that, Mr. Chair, I would appreciate your support and ask for a roll call.
Thank you, Representative Nash. And Representative Nash, I have one question for you. This is my understanding is you have a House File 531. This is the language from that bill.
Yes, Mr. Chair, this is that same House file. Had been trying to get a hearing, hadn't been able to get that scheduled. And when I saw that this bill was coming before us, it was a good place to amend it. And my House file does have bipartisan support. Representative Lilly is very supportive of this. He has carried and passed, and he is my second author, and has a Senate companion as well. So it's language that is not controversial at all, really. And coming from me, that's saying something.
Representative Nash. Representative Huot, what is your pleasure on the amendment? We normally ask the author what they feel about amendments from other people.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will accept the amendment. However, I do have to, the gambling board did contact me and they do have some concerns. I believe they are here if you want to hear them.
Thank you. And we have Matt Getman from the Gambling Control Board and Gary Danger, the compliance officer. Mr. Getman, you want to identify yourself and tell us what you think of the bill and of the amendment. Mr. Getman.
Mr. Chair, hi, this is Gary Danger, Compliance Officer for the board. Director Getman is currently testifying in a different committee right now. So I know he would send his apologies as well as his warm regards.
That's right. He told me that yesterday that he was double scheduled at 8:30 in the Senate, here and in the Senate. So Mr. Danger,
Okay.
proceed with your testimony and identify yourself first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gary Danger, DANGER, Compliance Officer for the Minnesota Gambling Control Board. Thank you for the opportunity today. Representative Huot summarized our straightforward bill that we have concerns over frankly, our ongoing concern. We have 2 vacancies out of 7 and potentially a third now coming up at the end of June. So we appreciate your support for our ability to keep meeting the nonprofits' needs. We're very concerned with the draft amendment. First, maybe just a couple quick bullet points. First of all, it seems like it might be crosswise with the Federal Wire Act, a prohibition against telephone sales. In researching, we've tried to find other states that maybe there's been some allowance. California did say that there was an allowance to print raffle tickets, but not necessarily sales over the telephone, which is specifically prohibited in that Federal Wire Act. 2, it may be very difficult in terms of traceability and the integrity of the conduct of all these different transactions to ensure that they're done correctly. The board's a civil regulatory agency, but I know our counterparts over at Department of Public Safety's Alcohol and Gambling Enforcement Division has expressed the same concerns in terms of their law enforcement requirements. Third, there may be third-party vendors that would be included or required as far as the need to process these different things. That obviously would be extra costs to the different charities, and that reduces their profits, but they're also unlicensed entities, which would make it increasingly difficult then to try to traceability and tracking. The last item is, I guess, what may be called a second order of effect. We deal with the nonprofits, the 1,150 nonprofits that you see conducting their gambling daily throughout the state, whether it's a veteran fraternal post or a hockey group that conducts out of a bar. 1,150 groups and 2,800 sites throughout the state. But there's also roughly 3,000 groups that conduct 1 or 2 of these raffles and events a year. I think Representative Nash summed it up pretty good. Lawful gambling is a social form of entertainment. They usually have a social gathering once or twice a year to raise monies and the pandemic, just by the nature of things, has taken social out of the equation, and that makes it very difficult. So we certainly are sympathetic with the organizations and what they're trying to do. But with all those additional groups, we don't want to have the message out there that online raffle sales are okay, and then there could be increased entities or even personal raffles and things getting the wrong impression, and that's an overload then on the non-compliance. Those are just some brief bullet points, and I'll stand for any questions. Otherwise, thank you very kindly.
Thank you, Mr. Danger. I also have Ben Johnson here from House Research, and I did ask our researcher for our committee to have look into this when this came up, and he reached out to Ben. So, Mr. Johnson, if you want to identify yourself and explain or tell us what you found out.
Mr. Chair and members, this is Ben Johnson from House Research. Just a few quick comments. Current statute and current rule are silent on the question of whether or not raffle tickets can be sold over the telephone. There is an exception in statute, section 349.2127, subdivision 7, that does permit sales of raffle tickets to take place with checks and debit cards. In terms of the issue of the Wire Act, the Wire Act is a federal law, as mentioned. It applies to the sale or transmission of money related to gambling and betting. The language of that act has been noted to be somewhat ambiguous by multiple courts. Currently and very recently, the First Circuit Court of Appeals has echoed the opinion of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, both of which have concluded that the Wire Act applies only to sports betting, sports events or contests. That it does not apply to lottery or raffle or other.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Questions, Representative Kosnick, you had your hand up first, and then I'll let Representative Nash wrap up on his amendment. Representative Kosnick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I've got two questions, one on the bill and one on the amendment. Just for the sake of time, if you don't mind, I'll ask them both and you can decide how they answer them.
Go ahead.
To the bill, in terms of filling the vacancies, the author had mentioned the administration is slow to fill these and causing problems for the boards to get their work done. Would it not be more direct to have the bill prescribe that the administration fill the vacancies as opposed to extending using the language that's currently in the bill? So why not go directly to the administration and say, hey, you got to fill these within a certain amount of time? And then a comment on the amendments. The definition of sale is interesting to me. I have a friend, my accountant, a guy here in Lakeville. He's a Lakeville Lion. They have a dinner raffle every year. Club 52, supposed to write him a check for $52 and maybe you'll win 500. I've never won. But so he texts me, hey, do you want to buy a ticket again? I text him back, yes. Usually holds a ticket off to the side for me. Well, this year with the legislative session starting a little bit earlier, I never ended up getting a check to him. And so I wasn't able to support my local community like I normally do, because then I went back into his office a couple weeks later with the check in hand, and he had already sold his allotment of tickets. And so I was not able to participate. So I think Representative Nash's amendment, if I could pay over the phone type situation, would have been a done deal right there. When he actually sold me the ticket, certainly didn't complete the transaction because we weren't able to do it over the phone. So it was an opportunity that citizens are not able to engage civically and support their community. So it would be a little bit easier, kind of keeps up with the technology of the times. And so I think it's something that should be pursued. And I think it's a good opportunity, and appreciate Representative Nash offering that amendment. And to the author, he's trying to make sure that our boards do the good work that they do. So I appreciate both the bills. Thank you.
Representative Hewitt, you want to answer the question about the first question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Representative Koznick, for the question. I agree that we need to work with any administration that sits in the governor's office to try to get more of these appointments done or come up with a solution. As I go through the boards that I've been working with, it's, again, administration's backlogged. I don't think it's their fault. I think it's just that they want to make sure they get the right person in the right place at the right time. And I'll continue my work with them to make sure that they know the urgency of these boards. And I just think that this is a good bill in the meantime to keep the board consistent and keep it running. So thank you for the question. And I look forward to you helping me with that. So thank you, Representative Koznick.
Representative Mason, quick question.
Okay, yes. I guess I have one concern about the fact that the compliant, Mr. Danger has some reservations. So if we pass the bill authorizing everything, does that mean anybody that's actually involved in the selling of these raffle tickets will not face any legal ramifications?
Representative Nash, I think, may be the best person to answer that. And looking at the amendment, there's an expiration date of July 1, 2022. So this is just my understanding, just for the during this pandemic, and it would go away after that. Representative Nash.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, you're exactly right. This does not have, this is not in perpetuity. This is something that would be, I hope we don't need it for very long, and that when we return to things as normal, we'll be able to do that. But they're still accountable to the same rules that they were previously, Representative Mason. So they still have to comply with the same laws from an accounting perspective, from an eligibility perspective. It's all still the same rules that they would follow if they were selling it in person. And I appreciated Mr. Johnson's commentary that Minnesota statute is silent on this, and that 2 circuit courts say that the federal wire issue that was brought up by Mr. Danger is only applicable to sports betting, not raffles. So I don't believe that the caution that was issued, according to 2 circuit courts, is germane to this amendment. So thank you.
Mr. Johnson, did you want to comment, or did Representative Nash answer completely enough?
Mr. Chair, members, I don't think I have anything to add at this point.
Thank you. So Representative Nash, you want to wrap up your amendment, and then we'll get to a vote.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate Representative Hewitt's willingness to take this on, and appreciate the commentary from Mr. Johnson showing and should be allaying the fears of anybody that Minnesota statute is silent on this, and that the 2 circuit courts have upheld that the concerns are only applicable to sports betting, which this is not. So appreciate your support on this, members. And as you cast your vote, think of all those good civic organizations that we all know of, like Representative Koznick mentioned, and the ones that I mentioned as well. Appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Nash. On a roll call has been asked for on the amendment. Ms. Spreck, do you want to take the roll?
Chair Nelson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Carlson,
Aye.
Representative Nash,
Yes.
Representative Drazkowski,
Aye.
Representative Elkins,
Aye.
Representative Greenman,
Aye.
Representative Kleborn,
Aye.
Representative Koznick,
Aye.
Representative Mason,
Aye.
Representative New Brindley,
Aye.
Representative Quam,
Aye.
with a vote of 11 ayes, the motion prevails.
The motion prevails. The amendment is added. Representative Drazkowski, you have a question?
Yeah, I do, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Chair, for a question for the author, Representative Hewitt. Why isn't the executive branch making these appointments? Did I miss it in your initial discussion?
Representative Hewitt.
Representative Drazkowski, Mr. Chair, Representative Drazkowski, I believe they are making the appointments. It's just that during the overlap, I understand many of the appointments get delayed, and a lot of these boards are in their decision factors. So they're getting done, but they're getting done at a slow pace. Just again, like I reiterate, the administration, like any administration that has sat there previously, the right person, right place at the right time. And again, I give you my commitment that I will continue to work with administration on board appointments, and I encourage you to help me on that, because I think it's something we have to look into to make sure these appointments get done for all the boards. Thank you, though.
And Representative Duskowski, this is something that's happened with multiple administrations in both parties. That sometimes some of these things get dragged out, and even with appointments that the legislature does. I serve on the pension commission, and in past years we've had trouble where they haven't been, the pension commission hasn't been appointed till late March, which really cuts down on the time to get their bills through to the legislature, and many times the pension commission isn't able to get their bill till way after deadlines, which is problematic at times. So this is a new phenomenon. It's something that happens.
So, Mr. Chair.
Representative Duskowski.
So, Mr. Chair, my question is not, and my concern is not about whether it's a Democrat or Republican in the governor's office. We seem to be in this language ceding additional authority to the executive branch, and that's an ongoing concern I have. We see it with Chapter 12, and we're wrangling with that right now. There's a wide variety of other areas where, in my opinion, lazy legislatures in the past have delegated all kinds of authority to the executive branch. I would guess this language probably came from the executive branch. I don't know, Representative Huot, where did the language come from?
Representative Huot.
Language came from the gambling board, Representative Januszowski, directly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if I could,
Representative
Representative Huot and members, yes. So the executive branch wrote the language. Ding, 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 ding. Alternative language, members, might be if the executive branch fails to appoint their person on time, the Speaker of the House or the Majority Leader in the Senate or somebody in the legislative branch makes the appointment. That would be an alternative approach that would actually retain power and bring power back, in this case, to the legislative branch, and hold accountable the executive branch for twiddling their thumbs or whatever they're doing. It doesn't take this long to appoint people, not only on this board, Mr. Chair, but on those other ones as well. And my concern, members, is we are again ceding authority to them. It appears to me in the language, they could sit on this appointment that expired indefinitely. I mean, is there a limit on how long this person who has the expired position on the board could remain there if the executive branch doesn't say anything?
Representative Hewitt.
That's a great question, Representative Januszowski. I don't believe it's in the current bill. I can defer to our expert testifiers if you'd like.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Gehring or Mr. Johnson?
Mr. Chair, Representative Drazkowski, the bill language currently is silent about how long a person could hold over into their position. Representative
Drazkowski.
So, Mr. Chair and members, this doesn't solve the problem. It only simply we are becoming even more codependents of an executive branch that is derelict in their duties here. So, or could be if it's a Democrat or Republican or whoever, maybe Governor Pawlenty was derelict in his duties and not doing it on time. This is only going to make that matter worse. And I would encourage us, Mr. Chair, to lay this bill over. I'm willing to work with Representative Hewitt. I would like to have the legislative branch have some element of incentive in here for the executive branch to actually do their job. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Nash.
I'm nothing, sir. I just lower my hand.
Okay. With that, I see no further questions. I'll renew my motion that House File 897, as amended, be referred to the Commerce Committee And Ms. Spreck, you can take the roll.
Chair Nelson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Carlson,
Aye.
Representative Nash,
Aye.
Representative Drazkowski,
No.
Representative Elkins,
Aye.
Representative Greenman,
Aye.
Representative Cleaborn,
As amended, aye.
Representative Koznick,
No.
Representative Mason,
Aye.
Representative New Brindley,
No.
Representative Quam,
No.
You missed Representative Drazkowski.
no,
Did you
I
get-
got Drazkowski.
Okay. I thought,
With a vote of 7 ayes and 4 nays, the motion prevails.
so the bill's on its way to Representative Hewitt. Your bill's on the way to Commerce. Hopefully we can have progress there. Thank you, Representative Hewitt. The next bill on our calendar today, members, is House File 784, Representative Thompson's bill. I'll move House File 784 be referred to the Judiciary and Finance. It's the Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law Committee. That's easy for me to say. And I see there's a author's amendment. Do you want to put that on first, Representative Thompson?
Yes, Chair.
I'll move the A2 amendment. And if you want to briefly describe what the A2 amendment does.
Chair, this amendment, and good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. I am John Thompson. I represent District 67A. Mr. Chair, also I have Edward McDonald, Keith Baker, and Valerie Castile with me as key presenters.
I have the list. Yep.
Okay.
So if
I'd
you
first like
explain
to
the
ask
amendment, we can get the amendment put on, and then the bill will be the way you want it.
Okay. The amendment is offered by MMB, and we work with MMB, which I accept. That deletes the page on page 5 of the bill, sections 1 and 2, inserts the language, the amended language. And the amended language does two things. It ensures we are doing our available utilization and reporting of our affirmative action program and contract procurement by each protected group. Women, disabled, Black, Latino, Indigenous, Asian, and veteran status versus the aggregate reporting that we have historically done. And second, it requires a quarterly progress report. So I ask for your support on these
amendments. Members, all in favor of the author's amendment, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Amendment's on. Representative Thompson, you describe your bill, and then we'll get to your testifiers.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you for consideration. This is a historic piece of legislation, and it's important. Specifically, House File 784 does two things. It targets $435 million in state appropriations statewide in the African American, African immigrant community to build and expand capacity to address disparities created by poor administration and enforcement of our primary equal opportunity laws made worse by the pandemic. Also, this bill also used $22 million to correct the poor administration and enforcement of primarily equal opportunity laws, affirmative action, contract procurement, human rights enforcement, and to end systemic racism, racial injustice, and eliminate the disparities that we see. So, Chairman and members, I ask the committee for your support of Minnesota's African American, African immigrant community as we prepare to answer any questions that you have, before us.
Chair Nelson, you're muted.
Self early. Representative or Ms. Roberts, I know we don't have a completed fiscal note yet, but do you have a preliminary note and the preliminary information on that?
Mr. Chair, members, the bill has direct appropriations in it for several state agencies, and those are a total of $457 million. For the agencies that are under the jurisdiction of this committee, the total for the direct appropriations would be $72 million. That's to the Arts Board and the state auditor. And there is a fiscal note being completed on Article 2, the policy provisions. It is not done yet, but the impact would be to admin and to MNB.
Chair Nelson, you're muted.
You're muted again. Chair
I don't know
Nelson.
if you got the letter submitted by the city of St. Paul. I'm not-
Got somebody muted me. Representative Thompson, the question I have for you before we get to the testifiers, this is a large bill. Is it scalable? I mean, if we can find some of that money, we just got our targets last Friday, or we got our targets haven't come yet, but we've got what they're going to be set on last Friday with the budget forecast. If we can't do all of it, is it scalable so that we can say give a certain amount to each one of these groups to get some of this stuff started? Is it possible to do that?
Yes, yes, Chair.
Thank you. Well then, members, let's go to the testifiers. And I have a list here. And the first person on my list is Mr. Edward McDonald. Mr. McDonald, if you can identify yourself for the tape and proceed with your testimony. Mr. Sir, you're muted.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chair.
That's
Can
okay.
everyone
It
hear me
happens.
now?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Edward McDonald. I coordinate the Minnesota Equal Opportunity Partnership for Representative Thompson, and our statewide group is the primary movers with helping him craft this important legislation. Mr. Chair, committee, the eyes of the world and the nation are on Minnesota's leadership as you contemplate responding to systemic racism and injustice, or you don't. The big question for many around the world and across the nation is, will the legislature send a message that Minnesota will lead in ending systemic racism and racial injustice and invest in stabilizing Minnesota's African-American communities and families? House File 784, if approved, send the message Minnesota will end systemic racism and racial injustice and to stabilize African-American families and others and ensure true equity, diversity, and inclusion. Minnesota has branded itself as the best place in the world to live, and we all agree that Minnesota's longstanding history of progressive politics and that there are few similar options and reputations of states around the country will still make it a leading, attractive place for diverse people to work, live, and recreate. However, when wide racial gaps in beliefs, disparities, exclusion, and institutional racism was disclosed and reached a tipping point with the killing of Jamal Clark, Isaac Adine, Philando Castile, George Floyd, all Black men, and then Justine Diamond-Rusick, the world and nation took to the streets in disbelief this could be happening in progressive Minnesota. If that wasn't enough, the onset of the pandemic, COVID-19, some members of the Asian community were targeted because of false beliefs they were responsible for the pandemic in Minnesota. As a result, Minnesota has become the vanguard of civil unrest worldwide and not the progressive beacon of living out Americans' constitutional ideas for all God's people. This furious cry from the world streets was to alert leaders that something is wrong with the administrative application of equal opportunity laws. You see, Mr. Chair, historically, Minnesota has prided itself as a national and world leader regarding human civil rights and civil liberties. For example, in Minnesota's move to statehood, there was a refusal to participate in the Fugitive Slave Act. Minnesota's Republican-led legislature passed laws outlawing segregation in the state. Minnesota mobilized a disproportionate number of its citizens to fight in the Civil War to free humans from bondage. Minnesota was one of the first states to pass an act outlawing discrimination in a bipartisan way. It was Vice President Hubert Humphrey and Walter Mondale from Minnesota that led the way with the passage of laws that rid the nation of Jim Crow policies. Minnesota provided Roy Wilkins the leader of the NAACP during the civil rights movement, his education. Minnesota arguably have the most progressive Bill of Rights, affirmative action programs, human rights statute, and contract procurement laws in the country. However, while Minnesota history is rich with efforts to advance equal opportunity and human rights, recent events and the poor administrative application of those statutes have fallen short of their desired goals, resulting in the worst systemic racism, racial injustice, and socioeconomic disparities in the nation for Minnesotans, African American communities, and others. The world and the nation is now waiting to see how Minnesota leaders step up to meet this challenge. The passage of House File 784 is the message we should send and showcase as a model to the nation and the world that they can use to eliminate systemic racism and racial justice as we do it here in Minnesota. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and committee members for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. And to the testifiers, we have a long list of testifiers, and we're going to have questions on this. I've already got one hand up. So if you can be concise in your statements, and I know the first two of the testifiers we hear are important to Representative Thompson to be heard on the bill. But if we can keep our testimony concise and do a couple of minutes, that would be helpful for the rest of the committee and for everybody else. The next person on my list is Valerie Castile. Welcome to the committee, Ms. Castile, and proceed with your testimony after you identify yourself.
My name is Valerie Castile. I'm Philando Castile's mother, and I would just like to say I really hope that you guys consider this bill. We understand this bill is very heavy, but everything within these four corners is very, very important to our communities. I have seen the African American communities depreciate in everything. You know, we have nothing for our children in our legacies, and we really, really need the assistance of you guys. You know, I have watched and I said to myself, according to the affirmative action laws, that it doesn't seem like we're being allocated the money that we need to thrive. So once again, I can piggyback off of everything that Representative John Thompson said and Mr. Ed McDonald had said. We are in dire straits, and I noticed that there's a lot of building going on, but then there are so many homeless people. So thank you for listening to me. That's all I got for you, but I'm very hopeful that you guys will be the model that we know that you can be, and show the world that you really do care. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Castile, and thank you for being concise. The next person I have, and hopefully I don't butcher this name too badly, is Huot Khalif. Mr. Khalif, please identify yourself and proceed with your testimony.
I think I'm a Mrs. Khalif.
Yes, okay. Yeah, I apologize.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really appreciate for the opportunity here today. Thank you, all members. My name is Huot Khalif. I am with Philando Castile Omnibus 2021 and MIAP. I am here today to ask for your support, House File 784. This is something that we started myself, Valerie Castile, Representative John Thompson, Edward McDonald, back in 2019. When we started a campaign to fight for the injustice and systematic racism in this country, especially the state of Minnesota. We have been meeting with the governor and his policy team since 2019. We met with him 3-4 times. We just recently met with him 2 weeks ago, and this file, House File 784. He listened to us. He understood the struggle that we're going through in our community, and he did assure us in our meeting that he is supporting 784 in our Zoom meeting when we had with him 2 weeks ago. What I'm asking here today, Mr. Chair and the members of the committees, and I really want to say, first of all, thank you to Representative John Thompson, who stepped up to fight for the fight that he said he was going to do when he ran for this seat. when he say he's going to run to represent his community. And I want to remind each one of you, you do have Black communities, African Americans, and African immigrants in your neighborhood. They are watching you today. They're also watching the action you're going to take on this bill, 784. And I'm hoping that you will consider, you will support this bill. This is just a down payment for the African American, African immigrant communities in Minnesota. I myself, Valerie Castile, Representative John Thompson, Edward McDonald, Keith Baker, and many more statewide who've been advocating and fighting for this bill. And I just want to mention and want to be grateful. Michael Janey is on this call today, who have been fighting for urban farming for the African American and African immigrants community in Minnesota. I have a lot to say today, Mr. Chair. Like I said, the Black communities in Minnesota are struggling. This is a bill that has everything that's in there. This is not only one area in the state of Minnesota, but everywhere in Minnesota. This bill will help everywhere and anywhere that African American and the African immigrants that reside in the state of Minnesota. The and this racism in this country, you see what's happening in George Floyd. You know what is about to happen in these communities in the state of Minnesota next week. And I don't want to say a lot. I'm stressed out, I'm excited, I'm nervous, and I'm just grateful to be here today that Mr. Chair, that you are giving us the opportunity to speak in front of you and to support this bill. I really appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Khalif. And I apologize again for not recognizing the gender. The
That's
next
fine.
person I have on my list is Tamiko Foster. Miss Foster, Mr. Foster. I think that's a Miss Foster.
Ms. Foster, thank you.
Yep,
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Representative Thompson and committee chair and other members for this opportunity. My name is Tamiko Foster. I am a physician board certified in pediatrics who also has additional training in public health, health equity, and health policy. I currently work as a medical director at a national health plan and also the owner of a health and wellness company that focuses on holistic care, patient empowerment, and health equity advocacy. In my 20 years of being a physician, my work is focused mainly on high-risk populations. I'm here to state my strong support for the HF 784 bill in its entirety. However, I will be speaking more specifically to Section 6 as it relates to appropriation of culturally competent healthcare services. This matters because everyone deserves the opportunity to live a fulfilled life and to feel their best while doing it. Like many of my colleagues, I've experienced firsthand how physicians from other racial or ethnic backgrounds did not take my health concerns serious until I told them I was a physician. The color of my skin, even as a physician, acted as a barrier. My care was handled drastically different after the revelation, and I now lead with my title in the introduction. Many of my colleagues share similar stories. However, as we also learned, like cases from Dr. Susan Moore and others, our status does not always equal appropriate care. Watching her video as she pleaded for help was a painful reminder of racism in medicine. I watched with tears as it reminded me of the last words I heard from my stepmother, who pleaded on the phone with me from miles away. They won't listen to me. I'm Black, overweight, and poor. Something is not right, and no one is helping me. I don't like this hospital. They don't treat me right. Please get them to help me and listen to me. Please get me out of this place. They are trying to kill me. I urgently reached out to Black colleagues in Illinois in a desperate attempt to have her care transferred to someone she would feel more comfortable with, someone who she could trust. Sadly, she died 6 days later. It was then that my fight for health equity and eliminating racism in medicine was birthed. Racism in medicine kills people and it keeps them sick. Structural racism is a key determinant in driving health disparities. And even when social determinants of health are addressed, African Americans continue to die and be more sick than other populations. Research has supported that patients who have access to physicians with shared racial, ethnic, or cultural backgrounds have better health outcomes. This is often referred to as patient-provider racial concordance. We know that trust is key, and studies have demonstrated increased levels of trust and communications among Black patients with Black doctors. Patients with Black doctors were more likely to discuss additional health problems, consider riskier procedures, and have better follow-up. Patient satisfaction scores and overall use of health services has also been reported as higher. In closing, I'll restate my enthusiastic support for this bill in its entirety, and also for culturally competent health care. In addition to the moral case, racism and health disparities cost trillions of dollars. Distribution of power, resources, and opportunities that benefit white people over other populations has long-term consequences that not only impact the health, but the economy. Providing culturally competent health services for African Americans provided by African Americans health providers is one solution of many that will aid in eliminating racism in medicine and advancing health equity. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Dr. Foster. The next person on my list is Michael Cheney. Mr. Cheney, you identify yourself for the tape and then proceed with your testimony.
Yes. Good day, everyone. North Minneapolis is going green. Give us a call and learn what we mean. Where once lie urban blight, now sits luscious garden sites, gardens without borders, classrooms without walls, architects of our own destinies, access to food, justice for all. And now, like sweet potato vines, our goals and missions all intertwine. Good day, everyone. My name is Michael Cheney. I'm an activist and an organizer. In the 80s, I was the founder of the Juneteenth, the state of Minnesota Juneteenth celebration. In the 90s, I was the founder of the Wendell Phillips Credit Union in South Minneapolis. And in 2010, I birthed a nonprofit called Project Sweetie Pie, the story of a community that came together, worked together for the common good of the youth and families of its community, for it takes a village to raise a child. About 5 years ago, I approached Mr. Ed McDonald, who was at that time the head of the Council on Black Minnesotans. And the reason that I approached Mr. McDonald is because we had not been being heard or listened to by the city, by the county, in terms of resources so that we could build this urban farm movement to address food security, food insecurity. And so it was through the help of Mr. McDonald, Representative Karen Clark, and Representative Holloman that we were able to create the first urban egg legislation in the nation. I'm very proud of that accomplishment, and that is the reason why I'm here today in support of everybody, Mr. Thompson and everyone that's on this call, because we fell short in one way in that legislation. And that being that we did not set aside land permanency. And without the land, we can't expand. And certainly land ownership is the marker between intergenerational wealth. And so when seeing this bill, you know, it took me back to those days 4 or 5 years ago where we were told by senators that this was cutting edge legislation. And that's the beauty of this omnibus bill is, again, it is cutting edge legislation. How do we know it's cutting edge? Because it responds, you know, immediately to these trying times that we live in. That being COVID-19 and the talk of food, national insecurity. And we talk about, you know, some of the work that Senator Tina Smith is working alongside Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senator Cory Booker in terms of the legislation that they're birthing on the federal level, the Black Justice Land Bill. And so again, as above, so below, I think it's critical that once again, Minnesota has an opportunity here because of the brilliance of this bill, the kind of prescience nature of it, that we can, again, not only lead the nation and demonstrate for the nation our level of compassion, our progressive values, but it's a chance for us to support agriculture in this state. As we speak, Assistant Ag Commissioner Patrice Bailey, first African-American Commissioner of Ag for the Minnesota Department, and he's formulated a statewide Farmers of Color Task Force. This legislation would marry itself well to serve the kind of on-the-ground action that's already undergoing. And so for all of that, I would urge everyone on this committee to see the value. One of the things I remember saying years ago, in life, you can either be first or you can be forgotten. So let's be first once again. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Cheney. The next person I have on my list is Brett C. Grant. If you want to identify yourself for the record and then proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Chair Nelson and members of the committee. My name is Brett Grant. I am Research and Policy Director at Voices for Racial Justice. I am also a member of the Racial Equity and Joy Coalition, a group of advocates from Minnesota nonprofits who are committed to advancing racial equity and dismantling systemic racism. A recurring theme that I'm seeing in this legislative session and in prior sessions is an inability to articulate racial equity, a lack of legislative will to prioritize the articulation of racial equity, and a desire to move gradually in the effort to articulate racial equity. HF 784 articulates racial equity in a way that is tangible, meaningful, and thoughtful. I've shared with the committee a tool called the Racial Equity Impact Assessment, which aids in the process of articulating the racial equity impacts of legislation. To me, the centerpiece of this tool is the first question it asks: who is most impacted, and how will you engage those specific communities in the analysis? Applied to this bill, the African heritage community knows better than anyone what issues we face and how to apply our experiences to develop solutions that are beneficial to everyone. Our history proves that. Effective policymaking to end systemic racism, which is what this bill aims to do, must be a collaborative process with African heritage communities from the beginning of the decision-making process to the end. And even during and after implementation of the provisions of this bill, ending systemic racism requires an ongoing process of collaboration, reflection, and evaluation to refine implementation strategies and accountability mechanisms. What will emerge from this process, I believe, are more questions about adequate funding that will enable members of this committee and the legislature to begin the process of ending the refrain of the Minnesota paradox that Minnesota is among the worst states in the nation when it comes to racial and economic disparities. Thank you, Chair Nelson and members of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. The next person I have on the list is Regina Jackson. Ms. Jackson.
Good morning. My name is Regina Jackson, and I'm a third-generation Minnesotan. I've grown up in the Rondo community. I have, when I was introduced to the organizing meeting for this Philando Castile omnibus bill, when I received my copy of the bill, it brought tears to my eyes. I have worked for since 1996 as a substance abuse assessor and counselor, I started working with women with children involved in child protection and corrections, and provided case management, as well as 10 years with Ramsey County as a chemical health assessor, going to hospitals and correctional facilities, helping people access funding when needed for treatment programs. I worked in the detox for 7 years, offering services. My case management work, the struggles that I found helping women with children with housing issues, even working with men on offenders workforce development. The struggles and the barriers and the continued run-ins with the injustice and racial inequities were just really overwhelming and very exhausting, because it's like being on a treadmill. And as I've worked for nonprofit organizations, 15 years with African American Family Services, I have been able to reflect back and recognize, they say, poverty is expensive, but so is the systemic injustice. but sometimes people don't mind investing that money if the desired goal is met, which is to keep people in an oppressed situation. I have seen and worked and struggled with receiving grant monies that allow you to set up a program. You set up the program, and just as it's beginning to yield progress, your funding's taken away, and it falls apart. And because of some of the restrictions and barriers, we aren't able to establish these programs and have them grow into profit programs so that our communities don't have to be dependent on government grant money. I think our goals are actually for our communities to become self-sufficient and to generate income, generate hope, and open doors, and be able to open our own doors to our youth as they come up and grow. I'd like to see from this grant or from this bill that young people of African descent will be able to have a place to go where they know that people can follow them throughout their journeys, whether it's education for the students in elementary to help reduce these disparities, whether it's job searching, mental health issues, case management programs. I see all that in this bill, and I see it for our entire state of Minnesota. And I hope that you'll back this bill and help us push this through and give us the seeds we need to grow and be independent, and breed independence, not dependence. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. And members, I've got 8 more people on my list here. If the testifiers could please limit yourself to a couple minutes, less than 2 minutes would be great, because we want to get to questions, and we want to get this voted out of here today and to the next committee. And if we spend too much time filibustering the bill, we're not going to get a chance to get to a vote. So members, or not members, but testifiers, can limit your conversation. That would be helpful to allow us to get to a vote. Next person on my list is a Mr. Henry Banks.
Hello, thank you for Mr. Chair Nelson and committee. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm a community organizer, community activist, and community leader from Duluth, Minnesota. I want you also to know that I am the founder and first co-chair of the Clayton Jackson McGee Memorial in Duluth, which was the first major memorial to lynching victims in the United States. I said that to say this: we are struggling to this day. The African heritage community is struggling in Duluth, Minnesota. I want to share with you a few important statistics. Pre-COVID in Duluth, Minnesota, the unemployment rate was 23% for African American people. The high school graduation rate in Duluth, Minnesota pre-COVID was 59% for African heritage students. Our home ownership rates in Duluth, it's extremely poor, amongst the worst in the United States of America. Business ownership for African heritage people in Duluth is abysmal, almost non-existent. This is clearly unacceptable. I'm here today because I want you all to really pay attention to what's going on in Minnesota. I want you to not forget Duluth. What typically happens is Duluth is left out, especially with regard to its communities of color. I have been doing this work for some 30 plus years. It gets better, but we want it to be the best it can be because we are Minnesotans and we love Minnesota just like anybody else. Do not forget Duluth in this process. We do have strong support for this bill for House File 784. Duluth Mayor Emily Larson is on record as strongly supporting this legislation. Our City Council President, Renee Van Ett, is a strong supporter. Other councilors, including Therese Tomanek, Roz Randorf, Janet Kennedy, and many others on the council have written a letter of support. And I want to make sure that letter is filed into record if you do not have it. I urge you, please do the right thing for our community. We are counting on you to do the right thing. We expect you to do the right thing. And as I end, in the spirit of Elias Clayton, Elmer Jackson, and Isaac McGee, please pass this bill for our people. Thank you.
I'm going to take one more testifier and then we're going to go to questions. Mr. Mark Anderson, if you want to identify yourself for the record, and then we're going to, and then proceed with your testimony. And like I said, try and limit your to 2 minutes, and then we're going to get to questions. Mr. Anderson.
Audio test.
I can hear you if that's Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the chance to speak on this. I'm Mark Anderson. I'm with the Barbara Schneider Foundation and with the Unity Community Mediation Team. And Barbara Schneider Foundation started after a officer-involved shooting, fatal shooting of Barbara Schneider. And we've been working on with police and public safety since the year 2000. We are part of a CIT model, which is about de-escalation and of crisis response. And we've been working with the Post Board and with police departments and sheriff's offices and hospitals around our state and really around the country on this. And let me just report to you one of the things we've learned in the last 20 years is that the primary cause, the primary barrier to de-escalation by an authority figure, either out on the street, police officers, in the jail with the sheriff, in the hospital with the nurse or others, is trauma. Historical trauma is an enormous burden on our communities. History of the United States has to be studied anew. We have to look at what we've really done in our country, how we've treated people and caused historical trauma, intergenerational trauma, and in fact trauma today because people don't feel safe in their communities. They don't feel cared for by their local government officials often. And so trauma is something that's become really recognized in recent years, but what's happening today, what we're hearing today is the youth are talking about trauma. They're saying, we're traumatized. Don't keep hurting us. And so I just want to just raise that up for your committee as you consider this. The whole issue of trauma is so significant for African American.
If you want to wrap up,
Indigenous,
please.
Absolutely, Indigenous and other communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Now we're going to go to members' questions. The first person on my list is Representative Koznick. Representative Koznick.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I appreciate hearing the testimony of the public here. I'm having laptop problems, so my video is not working, but hopefully you can hear me. Just a question for the author, and it's unfortunate we won't have that much time to discuss this. Maybe the chair would consider laying this over so we can have more member discussion on this important bill. To the author and the chair kind of mentioned this. There's a lot of allocations to different committees here, and it's quite a bit of a big fiscal impact. But before we get into that area, to the author, Representative Thompson, what is the concerns that you've heard with this bill in terms of getting it passed and the form that you have it in? Is there opposition to this bill? What are the issues of concern with this bill, Representative Thompson?
Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Representative and Chair. I haven't had any opposition to this bill.
Representative Koznick, follow-up.
Well, thank you, Representative Thompson. You know, I've heard some concerns with the bill. As I mentioned, you know, the fiscal request is quite stunning, actually. So my question would be, you know, even with the size of this bill, you've got it as one-time allocations. I believe the end date's roughly a year or something, maybe 2 years down. So if I understand the testimony, your written testimony and stated testimony, I'm wondering, Representative Thompson, if this nearly $500 million, do you think it will actually achieve the goal of ending racism? And then how do you determine the amounts that you've spent or allocated it within your bill to the different departments of state government? How did you determine, you know, how much to this place, how much to that place? How did you drive to that to make sure that we're spending the money in the right categories?
Representative Thompson. You're muted, John.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Representative, for that question. I also choose my words carefully, so I never said anything about ending racism. I don't think that one bill would ever end racism or undo racism. So I make sure that I choose my words carefully, and I don't ever want to say that a piece of paper or money would buy its way out of ending racism. As far as the technical piece, I would like to defer to that question to Ed McDonald, if you will, Chair.
Mr. McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative, thank you very much for that question. That's a good question that gets at the heart of this. Our analysis is generated from a number of quantitative studies that were done by the state and funded by the state. I'll mention a few of these, and I think we may have issued them to the committee. Keenan Research Group, Disparity Study 2017, resources devoted to civil rights enforcement, an update by the Minnesota Advisory Committee to the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, a compliance report done by the Governor Dayton's administration, independent compliance report with certain provisions of the State Human Rights Affirmative Action and Procurement Act, and some analysis that our state, our national NACP done in partnership with state government as well. Essentially looking at the last 30 years of just poor administrative application of Minnesota's incredibly progressive and forward-thinking civil rights laws. The one thing that we have done is a really good job of putting equal opportunity front and center in our procurement activities, as well as our affirmative action program, as well as in the enforcement of civil rights in the state. But we've had poor administration. We've had 30 years of disinvestment in our Human Rights Department. In 1994, it had 90 staff. It's down to 30-some staff today because there's been no net increase in funding. That allows for marketplace discrimination like credit access and other things to run rampant.
Can you wrap up, Mr. McDonald? We've got a lot more questions.
The dollar amounts are generated based on the formula of looking at the deficiencies in that area. How this continues, this is an investment as described in the legislation. Once we align the administrative application of those laws, those funds will then automatically flow because we will be utilized and not underutilized as we are because of deficiency with the administrative application of civil rights and equal opportunity laws.
Thank you. The next person on my list is Representative Carlson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, To Ms. Castile, I just wanted to say so sorry for your loss, and we really appreciate you being with us today to share your story and show your support for this very important bill. So thank you. To Mr. McDonald and to Representative Thompson, thank you for taking the time to talk with me yesterday and going over this very comprehensive bill. We had a great conversation. Representative Thompson, one of the things we kind of started talking about, and I thought would just be kind of a good lead into a question today to kind of wrap up what we were speaking about yesterday, was this this idea of the statewide impact and focus. Can you talk a little bit about the bill and the fight for racial justice across Minnesota? We did hear from Mr. Henry Banks. He spoke to some of the good works that he's doing up in Duluth. But just can you maybe concisely describe how the bill would be impactful across the state?
Representative Thompson, do you want to take that, or do you want Mr. McDonald?
I'm going to defer to Ed McDonald.
Mr. McDonald, quickly, concisely.
Real quick, yeah, we traveled the state, as Fahir mentioned, since about 2019 and had conversations around the state and got African heritage community on board with helping us define what the needs are in those communities. The funds are allocated to departments. Department will issue RFPs or other kind of opportunities for the African heritage community to apply for those funds to deliver services. It targets primarily the high population centers around the state, Duluth, St. Cloud, Mankato, Rochester, and those communities that surround those hubs. We have growing populations of African heritage people in all those areas, and their needs are tremendous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. The next person on my list, I'm going to skip your follow-up, Representative Carlson. Next person on my list is Representative Quam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to the author, it's very evident that the intent is coming from your heart and your soul. And, you know, I commend you for taking on this effort as a freshman. Part of the issue that was spoken about earlier was results and lasting results. And frankly, I'd want to understand what out of the box, out of the norm you're injecting or plan to inject with this bill, because we've done a lot of things that over decades that haven't changed things the way they should be. And I'm going to give you an example of one thing that I think did change, and that was expanding the idea and possibilities of communities. And there was a pilot project between the University of Washington, IBM, and community groups that took graduating high school students from communities that had high dropout rates in college. We gave them a paid internship. I helped with others to teach a math level course, and they lived in a dorm situation where they got counseling on buying groceries, doing laundry, all the life things that would help them be prepared and teach them things they might not have gotten in school. But what this did, and the successes were, they went back in the communities after they graduated, and they were not just role models that was somebody. They were people that, hey, my older sister graduated with her and she's a doctor now, or a lawyer. It put in communities people that were known in that community and successes, and that expanded the possibilities of the people in that community. And that type of thing, I think will have a lasting effect. And I'd like to know how you're injecting that, you know, more out of the box, out of the norm, and expanding the possibilities and the dreams of the people and the communities with this bill. Thank you.
Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. I want to take this question out. Can I share with you, we're coming up on the jury selection in the George Floyd murder trial. And George Floyd came to the state of Minnesota from Texas in search of job training. Ultimately, George Floyd was accused of having fake counterfeit $20 bills in his pocket, which he went into the store and allegedly purchased a pack of Newport cigarettes. So I asked, what creates an atmosphere where a brother has to have 5 or 10 fake $20 bills in their pocket? Underinvestments, poverty, a lot of decisions made for the community without the community. And here he came for training and ultimately got killed trying to survive. And we call that criminal. I'd also like to state that if there's a young woman walking into our stores, Target, and she's still in a coat and a scarf, and we lock her up and we don't fix that problem that initially got her there, she's going to be back in the store still. And we never look at the root causes. We try fixing a lot of things without the people that are going to be affected by the problem at the head of the table making decisions. Here, we actually know exactly what our community needs because everybody on this call lives in the community. And so here's an opportunity to not be at on the menu, but at the table, helping to drive something that would definitely impact our entire community. Also, and then this is my last piece, Chair, is I was told that this is the way that you do it. This is the way that you go about making the changes that you want in your community, is you be the change. And so here I am before this body, being the change. It's been a long, hard road, but I'm being the change that I want to see in my community and presenting before this body something that my community desperately needs. And so with that, Chair, I hope I answered your question, Representative.
Quick follow-up, Representative Quam.
No, thank you, and good luck.
The next person on my list is Representative Claiborne, then New Brindley. Representative Claiborne.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I just have a couple of very quick comments and then a question for Dr. Foster. First, I want to thank Representative Thompson for bringing this bill and to echo the words that Mr. Grant said. It is tangible, meaningful, and thoughtful. And then I'd also like to lift up Ms. Jackson's statement that poverty is expensive and that systemic disinvestment, as we just heard from Representative Thompson, is extremely harmful. Now, my question to Dr. Foster, with the disparities that we've heard today in the African heritage community, would you please speak to the COVID-19 infection and the fatality rates that we have seen in Minnesota? Thank you.
Is Dr. Foster still here? I don't see her on my participant.
Yes.
Dr. Foster, thank you.
I had dropped off for a second, but I'm back. Thank you. And thanks for that question. And I'll try to keep this brief, but the COVID-19 pandemic certainly just shown or escalated what we already knew as it relates to the disparities in African-American communities in their health. So for those of us who have been watching this and caring about this for some years now, it was sort of just something that we expected would happen, but certainly unfortunate as it relates to that. So some of it definitely is grounded in the underlying health conditions. But when we look further at the roots of those things that causes the chronic underlying health conditions, we're looking at structural racism and institutional racisms that help a system to perpetuate and increase illnesses and death. So the pandemic was just a setup to further cause harm in communities that have already been marginalized and impacted on so many levels as it relates to that. So we continue to see those numbers escalate, and certainly bills like this that put the resources and the power back in the hands of the community will help not only the COVID-19 pandemic, but also other health-related illnesses that will continue to disproportionately affect communities of color.
Representative New Brindley, you're next on the committee, and I'm going to try and skip long follow-ups because we got 5 minutes to go and we want to get this wrapped up, and a lot of people, a lot of members with questions. Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And since I won't get follow-up, I'll offer comments at the beginning before I ask my question. First of all, I actually found, Mr. Grant, I want to thank you for your testimony. I think that was really helpful. And I did look at the slides that you sent as well. And I found this to be really helpful. And I think there's a lot of good stuff in this bill. I think that there's stuff that's notably absent from this bill, particularly on the policy side. I think that, under education, we know that we lose Black teachers because of LIFO policies, because of last in, first out policies. It does not help our solving this problem. We know that school choice with culturally appropriate charter schools and private schools have been the most successful places for Black children to be successful. So I would love to see some policy provisions regarding those kinds of things as well. There's obviously a lot in this bill. There's just a couple things in here under our jurisdiction particularly, but going back to this racial equity impact assessment, there's a couple of things in there that I think were really helpful. One was, how would the policy change the situation? And I'm concerned about the lack of detail in this bill. There's a lot of money going out, but we don't know exactly what's going to happen with it. And so I think it's hard to assess whether or not this is going to, or how it's going to change the situation with that lack of detail. The other thing I'm concerned about, and I think that it's a really important question, it says, can the policy be sustainably successful? The vast majority of this bill is one-time appropriations. It's creating theoretically lasting organizations and programs, but it's all one-time funding. And so I'm concerned about the sustainability of this as well. And I guess particularly to our committee, with the appropriation to the Arts Board, I'm wondering, Mr. Representative Thompson, if you can tell us, do you know what the current appropriation is to the Arts Board and what this will do to their funding?
Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Representative, for that question and Chair. And I would like to defer that question to Keith Baker.
Mr. Baker, quickly, if you can answer.
Apologies, I wasn't clear of the question.
Mr. Chair.
Representative New, friendly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is, it's a rather large appropriation to the Arts Board, that $70 million. And I'm wondering if you know what's the current appropriations to the Arts Board, and will they be able to manage that increased appropriation?
Yeah, one of the things that I believe was recommended is that there be a committee established to work with the Arts Board in terms of the appropriation. What I also understand is that we're talking about a statewide kind of proposition, not just simply those dealing and addressing current organizations that have received through the Arts Board. So I think that when you talk about specificity and the administration, I think the committee there to support can put in place those kinds of programmatic mechanisms for sustainability. It's a matter of, at present, there aren't innovative frameworks for administration, not only as it relates to this bill, but I would suggest also procurement and business and technical assistance. So it's about allowing for innovative frameworks to be established, which are absent today.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. I'm going to go on here to Representative Drazkowski and then Representative Nash to wrap up for the and Drazkowski to wrap up for his caucus and Nash to wrap up for his caucus. Mr. Representative Drazkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to get Mr. Cheney's poem. I appreciated that. Question for the author. It looks like we're spending in this bill close to $500 million of taxpayer money. And it looks like it's directed each time to African-American organizations. I don't see a definition for African-American in the bill. Can you help us out with that?
Representative Thompson, I believe that's already in statute, but Representative Thompson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the question, Representative Drazkowski. And Chair, you're absolutely right. This is already in statute. But if you will, just give Ed McDonald a second, just a quick second to also further that question.
Mr. McDonald, quickly, we're running out of time here and we need to get to Representative Nash for his follow-up and then to get to a vote. Representative Tom, or Mr. Thompson, or Mr. McDonald.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Representative, African American would include all of those that descend across the diaspora, the continent of Africa, the West Indies, and that's many. I don't want you to name all of them, but that would be the primary ones, and it is in statute.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Representative Nash.
So Mr. Chair,
Representative Driscollowski, quickly, because we're running out of time.
Yeah, just a comment. I mean, I don't see this bill, Mr. Chair and Representative Thompson, as helpful. I see it as divisive. I'm going to read the definition of racism that the dictionary comes up with. Prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against a person or people on the basis of their membership in a particular racial or ethnic group. So we are directing money to people based on the color of their skin largely here. That's what we're doing in this bill. We are awarding people jobs based on the color of their skin. That means people who don't have that particular skin color outlined in the bill don't qualify. This bill is a racist bill. I'm voting no. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Nash.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a minute left, and I wish that we had longer. Feel that this should be laid over or brought back, and it'll be against my strong opposition that we vote this out. But we are being asked to appropriate $70 million to the arts for this bill, and we just heard a second ago that there would be a board that would be constituted, and we don't know who would be on that board yet, and we don't know when that board would meet, how that board would meet, how it would be staffed, what the cost of all that would be, in order to develop a framework for potential things that could come out of the funding. This bill has, to Representative New Brindley's comment, no structure to it, no methodology on how the money would be used, where it would be used, for whom it would be used. And I will say that I have heard a lot about ending systemic racism, but I have not heard from a good number of other communities that may themselves feel that they have been discriminated against. Perhaps the Latino community or the any other community, the Asian Pacific community. I have not heard from them about this bill. And I really think, Mr. Chair, that when you're looking to spend $500 million, or at least 72 million out of the jurisdiction of our committee, that we should really do a little bit more detailed work in committee in order to address these questions, concerns, and talk about this. I just don't think that you have done this enough time in committee. And as a result of that, I'm going to make a motion to lay this on the table, Mr. Chair, and I'm sure I'm going to lose that vote, but it's 10 o'clock and we have
Representative Nash has moved to lay this bill on the table. Ms. Spreck, if you want to take the roll.
Was a roll call requested, or can we just do?
I request a roll call.
Okay. Chair Nelson?
No.
Vice Chair Carlson?
No.
Representative Nash?
Yes.
Representative Bonner?
No.
Representative Drazkowski?
Aye.
Representative Elkins?
No.
Representative Greenman?
No.
Representative Cleaborn?
No.
Representative Kosnick?
Yes.
Representative Mason?
No.
Representative New Brindley?
Yes.
Representative Quam?
Yes.
With a vote of 5 ayes and 7 nays, the motion does not prevail.
And finally, Mr. Chair, I will say that this has been tremendously poor time management. I really wish that we would have had a more thoughtful discussion and that would have allowed all of our members to talk. Many have had either a truncated opportunity or no opportunity at all. And I just think that that's an egregious misuse of time. I'll be voting no.
With that, members, I'm going to forego the wrap up. I'm going to renew my motion that House File 784 be recommended, 784 as amendment, be recommended to be referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Finance, and Civil Law. The legislative assistant will take the roll.
Chair Nelson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Carlson,
Aye.
Representative Nash,
No.
Representative Bonner,
Aye.
Representative Drazkowski,
No.
Representative Elkins,
Aye.
Representative Greenman,
Aye.
Representative Claiborne,
Aye.
Representative Koznick,
No.
Representative Mason,
Aye.
Representative New Brindley,
No.
Representative Quam.
No.
With a vote of 7 ayes and 5 nays, the motion prevails.
The motion prevails. The bill's on its way to Commissioner to the Judiciary Committee. And to the testifiers who signed up to testify and we didn't get a chance to, if you want to submit written testimony, that will be included in the record. And to all that testify, thank you for your testifying. And with that, members, we are adjourned.